Welcome to Small Group Ministry Facilitation 101. Facilitation 101. This is something that Peter and I have sat down and written up, and we're getting to share it with Lee, and hopefully share it with other people. So if you're watching this and you're not in this trio, we would certainly love your feedback, but we are hoping to give you a real clue as to what facilitation is like in a small group ministry setting. So thank you, Peter, for helping plan this. And thank you, Lee, for being bold and joining us.
Outstanding.
So we thought we'd start with a chalice lighting and a check-in, and I'll get rid of this eventually, but I just was very enamored with my own skill. So pardon it being up.
Okay, so I picked a chalice lighting. Shall I go with it?
Please.
Okay, so this is from Albert Schweitzer. It says, at times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us.
Very
Albert
nice.
Schweitzer.
Thank you.
And I thought that we could do a brief check-in and an introduction, and including maybe any thoughts about what we particularly want to get out of this. And I thought I could go first. The reason why I was interested in doing this is because I did 2 small group ministries at my last church, and I found them pretty meaningful and really helpful in terms of getting to know people better. So I'm hoping for that here, and that it because it's a smaller group, it's easier to have a more of a sense of intimacy and connection. And there were some particular things that we did that I thought I could share and we could talk about, and hopefully contribute to having the same thing here. And so that's my share.
All right. Well, I'm Reverend Matthew. I use he, him pronouns. I'm excited for small group ministries because they really are the lifeblood of a congregation our size, Mountain Vista's size. And so it serves a need for connecting people. It also has, and we'll talk about this throughout, but it also has a way to sort of teach people what the congregation is, how it functions, and that's simply by the way that we conduct small group ministries. And in addition to, it makes people, really gives people a definite connection to the congregation at large. So it's very much an individual to a congregational relationship that I'm really looking to help foster with small group ministries. And I'm in.
Okay, I guess that leaves me. So I'm Lee. I use they, them pronouns. And I am interested in small group ministry because I'm at a point in my life where I feel like I need to develop some deeper relationships. And this seemed like a promising way to work on that.
Absolutely.
Great.
Well, thank you.
Great.
I'm going to jump back to the share, but this time it is more than just I'm enamored with my own graphics. So the flow of this time together follows this. The flow of small group ministry, a session, has similar parts to it. And so this is sort of the first part of the 101. is to share what a flow looks like. And that's that beginning with a chalice lighting is an excellent idea. It is not the facilitator's role necessarily to do that. In fact, you can assign that. You can invite others to do it that are in the group. Check-ins always a good idea to begin with as well, because it allows people to announce what's happening with them, why they're present, perhaps even what they're bringing with them. And I find it a very easy way to do that, of course, is as Peter did, he invited us to reflect on a question. And then another way to help people move things along is to announce when their check-in is done. And I prefer to say that as I'm in. And it's just a way to say I've checked in, but I'm also in the group, and it fulfills that. It's then a good idea to share what the flow of the evening is. I'm assuming an evening, anytime you're doing small group ministry. And then if there are any questions, and we have a very specific meaning for general questions this evening, Lee, but there's also a good time to sort of, it's a clearinghouse moment. Covenant also is good to review. And then these different parts, intimacy, ultimacy, parts, self, and small and large, is what we're going to talk about this evening. But that would be where you begin your own topic. So if it's working with tarot, which is one of the interests that's bringing you, we have, other small group ministries might be more topical to what's going on in the world today, or even what was just shared in a Sunday service. We're exploring creating some small group ministries there. So there's lots of different ways that they can, small group ministry can be functional. And then a wrap up, some way to kind of conclude things together. And we'll be asking questions of our time together. So there's one, you can reflect on the time, or you can have another reading, and then of course, releasing the flame. And that's another ritual way for us to conclude and allow people to step back into, step out of small group ministries together and into the world again. So with that said, general questions.
So I want to say that I have no knowledge of tarot, so I don't come to this with anything to add from that point of view. But as I understand it, one of the things that we need to talk about or think about is sort of this, how to structure the group in terms of when it's going to meet, where it's going to meet, how long it's going to meet for, how many weeks or months it's going to meet, whether it's time limited or indefinite. Whether people will commit to a length of time, or whether people will be rotating in and out. And that's all stuff that you can be thinking about as a leader and offer as a structure as you start the group, but can also be part of a discussion as the group's forming to get input from the other members. And that helps contribute to the buy-in as well. So those are the things that I remember thinking about as a group was starting. The groups that I did were structured to be deeper conversations about sermon topics. And so that's what we talked about. But obviously, as Reverend Matthew said, these things can be about a lot of different things. So those were my thoughts about general questions.
And Lee, we have the opportunity then to talk with you a little bit more specifically about the tarot, one of the two groups that'll be forming. And that's another reason we're making this video, is so that Robin can get some of this information as well. Hi, Robin. So the topic is something that you've already decided on. And even for that first session, Alice Vath, and we'll connect you with her, unless you're still connected with her.
I had not really.
Alice
I know Robin
offered,
is, but
okay, yeah. Alice has offered to come to the first meeting. And so then some of the things, like Peter said, duration, dates, and even the number of sessions, because we're encouraging small group ministries in different ways. And one of them would be, there can be ongoing, but when there's ongoing, we want to have more than one group. So we want to have some options. As opposed to, if it's the only group, then we would ask that it be time limited, and you'd number you'd have a certain number of sessions. The group can always reform. It's not that we're trying to limit that. It's a way for people to kind of move, have some mobility in all of it. But these are things that can be done via email. And in the first session. Peter, in your experience, would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I part of my experience is to have a board that you write down these kind of questions, people's thoughts about these kinds of questions, and it helps an agreement form as part of that initial discussion. And again, that helps people feel more connected and invested in the group, is my experience.
so in thinking in terms of a time limited group, is there a sense for what sort of an optimal range of time is for that time limited? Like
Time limited,
months,
yeah.
6 months.
Well, and how many times you would meet. Time limited often follows a curriculum of some sort, and so it's built into that. I would say, as far, if you're thinking months and not number of sessions, like if you met twice every month or something like that, but if it was just, or even sessions, I would say start with 4. Peter, I don't know what your experience is, but I find that if you give something doable, if it's 4 months or 4 sessions, and then find out how people are feeling about that halfway through, you can extend it. That would be my guess. Peter?
Well, my experience is doing every 3 weeks for 4 months, with the idea that people will rotate through the different groups as a way for more people in the congregation to mix with more people. But that's just that one model.
Yeah.
You might want to think about what you're trying to accomplish. Like you said, what's the agenda? Is there a particular set of things that you want to get through? And again, I have no idea of what tarot is about. So is there, like a curricula, or is it just like diving in, and you can dive in for however long makes sense, and sort of maybe just putting your foot in the water with a few sessions just to keep the metaphor going for a little while, might be a good way to start. You could also, if it's possible, survey people and see what they're interested in.
And Alice will have some suggestions for you. And it may have curriculum overtures. I don't think she has a curriculum, but she has been talking with some UU friends about what small group ministry is. And so actually I think there's a lot of UU churches where in your neck of the woods where you were from, Peter. So in that vicinity, I will say, it's not like Alice knows somebody that although UU worlds can be kind of small. But she will have suggestions for you as well.
Okay.
Good. And if you have particular things in mind for yourself, that a place where you're coming from, that can certainly be part of the discussion as well, or even a limiting factor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure I really have anything particular in mind. Coming at this with kind of a clean slate.
Yeah. Good.
Our next kind of area in our flow is covenant. And this, of course, is something you would want to have and go over with your group towards the beginning. That's why we've slated it where it's there. Peter has some thoughts about covenant.
Yeah, so covenant is sort of an agreement that you come to at the beginning of a group about rules for functioning. And my thought about it is that it's a way of helping to create a sense of safety. So you want to have a set of rules like respectful listening and speaking, like fair sharing of time, including things like a concrete talking stick to identify who's got the floor. And basically, what it comes down to me as being is respectful speaking and listening. And let me see if I confidentiality. So what's said here stays here.
Mm-hmm.
Starting and stopping on time as a respectful way of treating people and treating the group. A general sense of refraining from giving advice or unsolicited advice anyway. A sense of commitment to attending all sessions or sessions unless there's a good reason to not be there, and a commitment to call in and say if you're not going to be there, and maybe a commitment as the leader to reach out to people if somebody doesn't show up, to check on them. So just all that kind of stuff is a way of building connections and a sense of commitment to each other. And that helps create a container that facilitates a sense of safety.
Yeah, I really liked that exercise, Matthew, that we did at the board meeting where we created an uncovenant.
Yes.
Because it was really a good way to stimulate. It was like, so what would make this gathering feel unsafe to me? And then figuring out, okay, then that's the things that we need to put in our covenant, how we're going to prevent that from happening.
Yeah, that was a brainchild of Aaron's and mine. Peter, at our board retreat, the evening that we started it, we created an uncovenant, and it was all the things we didn't want. But we didn't create a covenant then till the next day. And then we played the ungame, didn't we? I think there was a game called.
We did play that. I don't remember when that was in the sequence.
Yeah. Well, it was thematic somehow. The next day, we wrote a covenant that was the quickest covenant I've ever seen written. because, you know, we'd slept on the ideas that what we didn't want, and it was pretty clear what we did the next day. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I think it helped to get at, because a lot of times when I've experienced people writing covenants, they feel like they have to put everything that they could possibly think of in there. Even if it's something that, like with this particular group of people, I'm not worried about you having that problem. I know these people well enough to know that this is not going to be an issue. We don't need to state it because it's a given. But they state it anyway. They're trying to think, and so thinking about it in terms of what is each of us afraid of, or what would make this really a bad experience for me, then helps to sort of focus in on what are the things this particular group needs to have in a covenant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thought I had was the possibility of doing some sort of a meditation as part of the process of doing a covenant, or even as part of the process of doing the group, to sort of facilitate supportive energy, or a sense of peacefulness, or a way of supporting the general direction of the group, if that exists.
And drawing a tarot card could be a way to help people focus. You know, what do I need to know? What do I need to reflect in the covenant? And then have everybody draw a card, and then find out what their interpretation of their card was, how they're feeling about that. That would be an engaging way that parallels, you know, what Peter suggested, but get moving into the session together.
Yeah, that was exactly where my mind went.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's great.
One of the things then you can do when you come back together after you've written a covenant, or you've got one that you like, is something that we're doing also in the board, is that we read it again at the beginning of our meetings. And we just pause. Covenant is not written in stone. It should not be in any case. We call ourselves a living tradition. And so there's always an opportunity to make changes, further clarification. Yeah.
Yeah, but I like what you said about repeating it.
Yeah.
Or even having it up on a board that you can just look at. And absolutely with the option of making changes as you go along.
Yeah, both the board's covenant and uncovenant are posted upstairs where the board meets. So if you're ever curious, Peter, go up to what's also labeled as the peace room, and you'll see two covenants, one where it's misspelled and corrected with a slash through it, and all the terrible ideas, and then all the good ones. But we have a board meeting coming up, and we will come back to it. We'll always return to it as a really good touchstone for the entire group.
Beautiful.
The only last thing I would say is that when you're creating a covenant, sometimes it can be a little confusing what is happening. And the one way to look at it is they can be behavioral. And we've talked about some of the ways that they can identify behaviors we're committing to each other. They can be aspirational as well. And everything's fair game. It's just sometimes it's as a facilitator, you can kind of identify what's happening. If there's some confusion about what a behavioral covenant or behavioral language might be, and then aspirational, I would just encourage all of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually like thinking about both of those sides.
Yeah, there's a relationship. There's not an either or, you know. I think I wrote or in there, but it would be better to look at it as they're quite related. And the reason that we create covenant, and I'm going to shift us into the next part, is because small group ministries need a container. They need safety. Brave space is another language that has come up. And covenant helps us create that so that we can explore a sense of intimacy and ultimacy. These are some core concepts to Unitarian Universalist practices of small group ministry. It doesn't matter what the topic is. What it does is offer an individual the chance to be known for who they are. And a covenant then gives some behavioral and aspirational ways for us to name how we're going to hold each other, how we're going to be together, and allows then individuals in a safe, brave, held environment to really be able to reflect and be themselves. So have that sense of intimacy. But combined with that is a sense of also what's the most important thing. Small group ministries get at that in lots of different ways. If it was a small group ministry talking about the news, what's the most important thing that we're talking about? And getting down to, or up to, depends on your direction, transcendent or depth. But what's really the values that are important to us? Small group ministries that might be theologically based would talk about God or the universe or different theological names. And so ultimacy sometimes is sort of thought of as that, but it really is of what is of greatest value. And whatever your topic is, it's going to give you a chance to be known for who you are and also engage in what is of greatest value to you and to the others in the group. And so that's that sense of intimacy, ultimacy. And they're not an either or. They really go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, tarot has a great way to do that. The way that Alice has taught it to us is that it's not about a preset meaning, but about instead your response to the card that you're drawing. And then how is it that is being shared? Have you created a covenant that people feel comfortable reflecting and sharing on those, what they're seeing in themselves? Is it a way to talk about big picture things? If you're saying whatever the question, we're all going to answer the same question. And, you start talking about really what is of most value. So the tarot becomes a really interesting tool, I think, to begin to really navigate intimacy and ultimacy together.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds great.
And we expect then, because small group ministry really is looking for about, the numbers are pretty much 6 to 12. I think you can go smaller, but 12 really becomes a max. And that's just because you start really growing the number of relationships and being able to connect with people. But we expect them to have people expressing themselves, intimacy, being known, ultimacy, big ideas, and that may be challenging in the conversations, in the dialogue to that. And so Peter was going to talk about a strategy that he has in order to facilitate those moments.
Yeah, so I was going to talk about the notion of parts and self, and the idea is that and this might overlap, mesh nicely with tarot and cards, because we all have a lot of different parts of ourselves. And in the moment, we can get blended with a particular part, and that can sort of take over, and we come from that. But the notion is that we all have a bigger self. We all have lots of different parts of ourselves, lots of different ways of expressing ourselves, lots of different ways of connecting with ourselves and others and the world in general. And to have a full sense of meaning means to keep track of that, uh, at least to a certain extent. And you can lose track of certain things as you get, if you get particularly blended with a particular perspective on something, or you get triggered about something, or you draw a card and you just react to that card, and you lose track of the rest of the deck, but the rest of the deck is still there, and um, it's all again, not knowing anything about it, but to me, it's all part of being human. And you can draw all kinds of cards, and they can speak to some part of who you are, uh, and with some sense of meaning. Um, and um, and certainly as part of a group, that everybody's speaking for their parts. As I understand it from Matthew, that the idea is that you pull 3 cards.
Yeah.
Did I understand that right?
That's
And so
one way.
Yeah.
oh, okay. So if you do that, then you have the 3 cards and 3 parts of yourself in a particular group, but then you have all the parts of everybody else that's there, and all the ways that those things can interact with each other, that can create a real sense of richness. Sometimes it can create some conflict, that hopefully can be worked through and resolved, or uh, somebody else's perspective can help broaden your individual perspective, because you're getting that input that you didn't have before. So my thought was that this is just a helpful thing to keep in mind, as part of doing a group like this, and I just wanted to offer that as something that's been useful to me in different places.
Peter, when you introduced me to this, the parts self, I really reflected back. I had led a small group with the UUA's Build Your Own Theology curriculum. And
Yes.
The first session was introductory. And then this is a curriculum, right? There's so many sessions. We'd all agreed we're going to do it over a series of weeks. Every week we were going to come back. Second week, one of the people in the group said, "This isn't what I want to do. I want to do this other thing instead." And ultimately, the person decided not to stick with the group, which was absolutely fine. But what you've helped me understand, Peter, is that person was talking from a part of themselves. They had particular needs and ideas that really didn't fit into the curriculum. We weren't able to shift and incorporate that. They thought it was something else. That part of them responded to. And when we affirmed that, no, the parts of us that are here for the theology curriculum, then the person decided to go. And there was it was a conflict, and there was conflicting parts, but we sorted through it. So.
Yeah. And hopefully that person could get whatever that need was met somewhere else.
Yeah. Ideally, right? I mean, and we have other small groups. There's other places for people to get that done. And maybe it was just, I mean, we didn't continue to find out because that wasn't what we were about, but there was something else that they needed to be about and doing. And we encouraged them to do that. So it just really helped me sort through people who often come with different needs, different ideas. It's more about the conflicting parts than the conflicting people.
Right.
And that was really helpful, Peter. Thank you for that.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. That's been really helpful for me too, to have that perspective.
The other aspect of small group ministries, I mean, so far, I think you can probably, Lee, see hopefully some practical parts about working with tarot, but also how it reflects the congregation and how it really shares what congregational life is like. We have covenant. We try to create space. We want people to be themselves. We recognize that sometimes the parts of us don't agree, but the whole people are really what we're cultivating and are in relationship together. The last part that we wanted to talk about is a sense of the small to the large. Small group ministries have a sense of connection to the congregation. So small to the large congregation. And oftentimes, one of the things they will continue to talk about and engage is how can they honor that relationship? Is there a way for that to be shown, expressed, acted out? The ones that I've heard before or been a part of in the past is that there's some kind of project then that a small group ministry does that reflects that relationship. And it really is up to the imagination of the small group in a lot of ways. A project, though, makes it sound, I mean, there could be a service, not like a Sunday service, although that's a possibility. But there could just be some way that there is an understanding this small group ministry is a part of a larger whole. Well, I mean, tarot would be a wonderful way to kind of explore that in and of itself. Like, what is the relationship, or how do we express the relationship would be a really interesting thing for people to pull cards and begin to express that. But really, it's that small group ministry functions well when it relates back, say, to the purpose of the congregation. So engage, love, transform. How are we living out that mission? And are we doing it? What's happening outside the small group? How do we show that relationship to the congregation outside the small group? So, Peter, do you have examples from your past experience on those kinds of things?
Well, what's coming to my mind is the notion of reaching out even beyond the congregation. Mm-hmm. So having this affect MDU's relationship with the community, for instance, and that can happen in so many different ways. But it's like we can express who we are in the community by getting involved with going to a school, or helping clean up an area, or you can do something like as part of a small group, make a commitment to contributing in the congregation some way, like helping to do the food one week, or helping to clean up an area, or taking whatever comes up in the group outside of the group. leading a service one Sunday. That's I did the building your own theology group myself, and what we did was we ran a service one week, and we talked about what we were finding out about ourselves uh, to the congregation, to explain what we were doing, and also as a way of connecting on a deeper level with people by just sharing what was coming up. I could imagine people being really interested to hear about tarot and what comes up and what you learn and what you can learn, and um, uh, maybe maybe get some people interested in joining a group themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and just and spreading it around. Uh, so all of that, it like stirs up energy.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, as a way of livening the congregation.
Yeah, because this small group ministries are always additive in my experience. They don't take away things from a congregation, they add back to it. And so maybe that's what we're talking about in a way, is reflecting on how is your small group adding back, and being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think they ever subtract, but I think there's an intentional relationship that really empowers a small group.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
With Thanksgiving coming up, I'm thinking about cooking and adding ingredients to the larger meal.
Yeah.
And just adding some spice, adding some energy, some different perspective, and
Yeah.
stirring it up.
The table grows, the offerings at the table grow.
Yeah.
And MVUU, the large MVUU benefits from that. The community, if there's ways to reach out to the community table, can benefit as well. Yeah. So all of that, keep on the table, keep before
Mm-hmm.
folks, let them know from the beginning, there is this bigger relationship. And it's one that's exciting and energy producing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, several of those ideas spark ideas in me. But I also think that doing a tarot card draw on what the larger, to help spark conversation within the group on what that connection might be,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a thing that might happen at the first meeting.
What's occurring to me is also with a sense of respect for reservations people might have about doing that kind of sharing. Sometimes getting back to the parts idea, sometimes we have an agenda from a part of us that wants to do a particular thing that's us and doesn't necessarily match with the other people in the group. And that is part of the agenda of being respectful. It can be important to be respectful to that. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the final word on it, but that it's important to be respectful, that people might have reservations about doing particular things, or other ideas about other directions to go in.
Mm-hmm.
So Lee, our time's kind of closing here, and we're moving to the wrap up part at the ending. This would be a time to indicate to folks, like I say, our time is coming to a close, and conclude conversations. Is pausing to make sure that folks who haven't had a chance to speak get to speak, and all those wonderful things. by just inviting them. But as
Mhm.
we're wrapping up, I guess I just want to have some questions to see if we are giving you some enough information to feel confident in facilitating.
I mean, I feel like I have enough information to do a first stab at it.
Mhm.
I feel like I don't have to be an expert at facilitating it because we don't have any experts. So nobody else, no, we didn't have any experts that wanted to volunteer. So I can just do the best I can, and we'll all learn from the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And facilitation isn't a lonely thing, so I mean, we're having you here, but Peter and I are seeking out people who have expressed interest in other ideas. We're going to use this and maybe even just meet with individuals or smaller groups again for facilitation training. So we are resources for you to bounce ideas off of. Robin, of course, is going to start a parallel group. You've got Alice, and these are just examples that there's a network of support for you to do this, and we hope you have more questions. We hope not in a challenging way, but in a way that is a growing way. Hey, what do I do about this? Or I've got this new idea, and we would be happy to help you think through those or share experience that we might have had that would be similar. Two things in the wrap up. One, make sure you're participating. And facilitators can often be think that they're supposed to hold back. There's a key to that, which is make sure that others have a chance. You're checking in with people, but don't just you're not there just to make sure that this thing comes off and to not actually participate, intimacy, ultimacy, parts of yourself, and also the small to the large. That's not what we expect of a facilitator. You do have to keep an eye on a few things, but that's really it. Is you've got to keep an eye on those things, and it's really about relying on the group. That's where the covenant comes in. Is the group also is working together to help move things forward. And then the only other thing, and this word sometimes gives people pause, and Peter mentioned it earlier, and that's confidentiality. We do want groups to be spaces where people can have conversations that aren't going to happen outside of that. And in that supportive network, know that I am always a person you can turn to if you have heard something confidential that concerns you. It is not breaking confidentiality to talk with the pastor. Let me worry about that stuff. No, and especially if there's something concerning or worrying you about an individual, it's always a good idea just to check in. So that also isn't a word to isolate you or to, make you feel alone or have extra responsibility. It really is a way to recognize you're part of a bigger community, and I'm here to support you. So that's always a place to go with that. Do you have any questions for us?
I feel like I don't even know where to. I think until I get started, I won't know what the questions are. It's like until I start to try to do something, then I'll realize, oh, I don't know this. But now it's such a blank that I don't really know what the questions would be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, send them to us, or call us, or catch us, or add them to the questions that inevitably I cause you to have on Sunday mornings. Peter Lee is our AV lead, and so inevitably I get there on Sunday mornings, and Lee finds me and says, "Do you have a minute? I have a question or two." So they could be offered there too, Lee.
Excellent.
Sounds good.
Peter, you have any closing thoughts? And then I'll read a chalice extinguishing or a releasing of our flame.
I think we covered a lot, and it sounds like we were ready to just go to the next step and see how that goes. And sounds exciting.
Well, thank you, Peter, for helping organize this and share your thoughts and wisdom. And thank you, Lee, for taking this step to facilitating a small group. Appreciate that. Edward Everett Hale says, "I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do."